All of the water we use in our daily lives was once and will again be part of a watershed. A watershed is the whole region from which a river receives its supply of water. Lakes and ponds are water impoundments or terminal points for a watershed. Water runs to a river over the surface of the earth or from underground sources. We focus our attention on one of central Kentucky's main watersheds, the Salt River. In order to manage this resource, concerned citizens residing in the Salt River's watershed, the University of Kentucky, Cooperative Extension Service, state and federal agencies introduced the watershed approach. The project looked at ways to manage the upper Salt River counties of Boyle, Mercer, Anderson, Spencer, and Shelby. The watershed terminates at Taylorsville Lake. To further visualize a watershed, let's look at this rainfall simulator where water is being released from oscillating nozzles at an intensity of 4 inches per hour. The rain impacts the land, or watershed, and then runs downhill until it reaches a waterway. The water's quality at this point is a product of everything that moves with the water during the journey through the watershed.
Agriculture plays a major role in the economy of the upper Salt River watershed.
First of all, we had to outline what the watershed was.
236,000 acres to the watershed.
74% of the upper Salt River is involved in agriculture. Most of the land is used for grazing livestock or hay production.
7% of the total cows and calves in the state are concentrated in that watershed.
The remaining 22% of the watershed is forested. The first question to ask is, what were the problems occurring in the Salt River watershed?
There were a lot of folks in that hydrologic unit. They didn't realize that the runoff from their farm went in the Salt River. I mean, it went into some small branch, Jack's Creek, for example, of course, and it all dropped into Taylorsville Lake.
The problem was low oxygen levels in the lake due to high phosphorus levels coming into the lake from the Salt River.
Annually, the upper Salt River receives 227 tons of total phosphorus from the region.
It became eutrophic, a lot of algae growth, algae dies, and then in that decomposition process uses up the oxygen in the lake.
And that was the whole source of it. And they had pinpointed that it was one of the primary problems was animal waste.
As a result of the project, over 100 animal waste facilities were installed on farms in the Salt River watershed.
And as monitoring went on, they found that there were a lot of nutrient sources other than animal waste. There were some point sources contributing more than was first thought.
Following 3 years of monitoring by the Kentucky Division of Water, water contamination sources were found to be from urban impacts, poorly maintained septic systems, overloaded waste treatment facilities, sediment from construction sites, and agricultural activities.
Here is a riparian area that's been destroyed by cattle impact. The soils are compacted, and then when we get a flood situation, we get erosion, and you can see all the sediment down here that runs into this creek. This is Bohannon Creek, and then it eventually ends up into the salt. And one of the major reasons we're concerned with silt is it's high in phosphorus in this part of the country, and phosphorus is one of our main concerns with the nutrient load in the salt.
Riparian areas are critical parts of a healthy watershed. As water moves through a riparian zone, plant and microbial processes clean the water of soil particles, excess nutrients, and chemicals. However, riparian areas that have been damaged by overgrazing and soil compaction are unable to keep enough runoff and pollutants from entering streams. When a farmer maintains riparians, the result is a best management practice, or BMP. The There are several BMP guidelines approved by state and federal agencies that reduce water pollution on farms and improve water quality downstream. Now, for our second question concerning the watershed approach. How were these projects organized? Initially, a concerned citizens group identified the problems.
And I came on board in that in 91, in the fall of 1991. And that, like I say, the hydrologic unit was already, they had a citizens group and they already had some committees set up. And I went around and started out going to some of the counties and just getting acquainted with some of the citizens groups.
That's one of the things about the RC&D program and the concerned citizens that are involved with the project is that it's from the bottom up. These people at the bottom level are saying, this is what we need.
Education was the main objective.
In the first 5 years, they concentrated on animal waste systems, and now we're getting into riparian areas and seeing how we can fix riparian areas within the watershed.
Because a watershed approach is complex, there's always a need for many sources of expertise.
Today, with so many issues that's affecting so many different agencies, we're having to cooperate.
We've got a lot of players involved in the Salt River Project.
A cooperative project, better use of resources. It's easier for me as a participant, a cooperator. I've got one person I can go to, and say, hey, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with that?
I think it's very important in today's society that man and his environment work together.
The goal of the project has been to have open communication between agencies and clearly defined objectives.
We've got state agencies involved and as well as federal agencies, and all those coming together and meeting from time to time to discuss the project and keeping the project in focus and on course.
As we'd like to see happen. It started with the Citizens Committee.
Complaint-driven process as far as Division of Water is concerned, and going back to the Ag Water Quality Authority, when you look at the plan that we're doing.
Enough water quality protection resulting from just a cooperative program, then they don't have to implement regulatory programs. And they would rather not do that because nobody wants to get into the takings issue.
Nothing is more important to the success of such a project than to select a cooperating farmer with an ideal location.
Was there animal impact there in a tributary or directly on the salt? And how visible would it be as far as a field day or drive-by demonstration? Was there some interest on part of the farmers as to whether or not he was interested in water quality or not? And we've pleasantly found out that most farmers know about the problems and are interested in the problems and are concerned.
Each agency has unique talents that can benefit all involved in the project.
You're ready to go. So you hit mark. You're able to relate what you're doing to the real world. You can identify it spatially. You can set it up whether it reads UTM or lat long or state plane, whatever coordinate system you want it in.
We can use the GPS unit in our project here on the Salt River by being able to identify true boundaries of farms, true sizings of fields, and locate critical areas of treatment and identify our BMPs that we implement.
This is across the Salt River. This is that 20 acres he was talking about that's across the Salt River. And that's what you're saying. The cattle go under the road. There's a bridge right here in front of his house.
Here's some examples of best management practices, or BMPs, that farmers in the Salt River Watershed are using in accordance with their ag water quality plans.
So how many cattle do you plan on feeding through the winter?
Around 35, 40 head.
Okay. So you think this is going to make it easier than past winters to feed hay? By
absolutely. That's really, I believe it's going to really do a good job. Yeah. Anxious to get going.
Anxious to get going.
they've always had excess. They go in it and do their stuff in the water. This way they won't be able to, other than a little stretch that they can get water to drink out of. But that's really, I really like that idea there.
In order to teach them, we took the approach of showing them. And in order to do that, we need to get some of these facilities out there and get them on the ground.
A geotextile feeding pad is one BMP used to reduce mud and animal manure runoff.
Those cows are laying out there on a heating pad. That's kind of what they're doing.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I see is they don't waste near as much energy getting to the hay. Obviously, they've got to come to a muddy area before they hit the hay pad, and they travel from one general direction, so that part of it there's nothing we can do about. But they don't fight in the mud. They're not sunk in the mud to their udders, and that's important. I'm a March calver, and you know, calves don't need dirty udders.
Any questions? If not, we'll go on down to the other.
Another useful application, I'm told, and I'm going to try it, is around water tanks.
A second BMP used a stream crossing to provide livestock with a place to drink without disturbing the banks in the stream riparian area. In the first case, geogrid may be used for wide stream crossings. In the second case, a geotextile was used for narrow stream crossings.
It's made with filter fabric and rock, and then there's some concern that those may not hold, so we wanted to look at this one, see if this would hold any better than the other one. With this breath here, this may be the way to go.
An electric water gate was used to confine cattle within the crossing site.
Those cows won't touch that chain very much, because if it's damp, especially in the creek, it gives them a pretty good shock. Here from the Forest Service, it's got some pictures and some diagrams. There's a lot of different applications where you can use this. If you've got a stream that's got a curve in it or something where it's eroding it out, you can lay these down and it'll build up some silt over a period of time.
It's a good idea. We need the future. I never really stopped and thought about it, and I hope they'll follow through and come and see this and give them encouragement to do this.
At the University of Kentucky, we've been looking at some other ways to get water to cattle, and this is one of them, using solar power to run a pump.
Well, the farm has several low areas, or riparian areas, if you will, and the first thing we did was build a riparian fence to segregate livestock and keep them out of those areas. Then we also constructed a pond in the back to provide water for, I guess I'll use the term new fields that weren't segregated before but became segregated by the riparian fence and the alleyway that we would construct later. We also improved the spring in the back that would provide water for a couple of the extra fields.
We was close to the stream. Anytime it was wet, we pretty well filled the feedlot here to capacity. We was having to either dump the manure over the fence, let it sit there, and if it rained, we got runoff. We couldn't spread the manure when we needed to spread it.
You need to be aware, if you're not already, about the Ag Water Quality Act. You should also be familiar with something with this publication here. It's called the Producer Workbook. If you haven't got one of these, you need to try to get your hands on one if you fall within the guidelines of needing a water quality plan.
We use all manure on crop land. It goes on the back of ground, corn ground, until those crops are planted, and then we go on pasture ground with it. There's been people here in the counties come by and looked at them. There's been people from other counties come by and look at them. They've been either funded or thinking about putting in some pads of their own. They come by and look at these, get some ideas. And some of them have gone back and built buildings.
We built a riparian fence. We've almost finished the alleyway. We've developed one water source, built 2 new water sources, and it's run very, very smoothly. I've been awfully pleased with how it's run. I have been real pleased with the results, quite honestly.
In this next practice, farmers moved livestock before they could overgraze a pasture. The result was less soil erosion, improved nutrient recycling, and reduced runoff into nearby streams.
The rotational grazing aspects, the way we divided the farm, would let me intensively graze and use the forage more effectively. I can move the cattle from any area of the farm to any other area of the farm by myself. And you couple that with the improvement of water quality that's going to happen over time, and it's nothing but a winner.
I usually try to cut back nitrogen recommendations 25–30%, depending on the amount that I get on the ground. So yeah, you can back up fertilize.
I have 2 sons, and you know, I'd hope that they want to live here too at some point and farm the farm. And if we ruin it, obviously they wouldn't want to do that.
It is everyone's responsibility to understand how water pollution occurs. It's up to farmers, homeowners, industries, and municipalities to protect Kentucky's water resources. The watershed approach. It's up to you and me.